What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Innate Domain podcast. And our episode number 5 today, the topic will be manipulation. We are very excited to share this one with you guys. This is the longest episode to date, just over 2 hours. So we really hope you guys enjoy, and we'll see you in the show. Manipulation is usually seen as a negative, horrible thing to do. Do you think it's possible to flip the script and have people think of it as a positive thing?
I think that's definitely possible because manipulation is looked at in a negative light, and people think, oh, if you're manipulating someone, you have bad intentions, you're going to do something evil to them. Mm-hmm. But manipulation can be used in a lot of, if you look at leaders or bosses or whoever may be above you at work, for example, as a good leader, they may use it's more so contrivances, which is the positive side of manipulation.
I was going to say, I've never heard that word before.
It's pretty much just positive manipulation as a contrivance. Mm-hmm. But they may use whatever factors it may be, like pizza parties it's a stupid example, but they may say, hey, if you hit your goal of doing this or that or hitting that metric this week, we'll get a pizza party. Mm-hmm. And they are persuading you to do well, to do better at your job mm-hmm. with that reward. And that's still technically manipulation. Or if someone is doing something that is doing nothing but harm to them, and you don't want to tell them straight up, hey, you need to stop doing that, because they might say, fuck you, I'm not going to listen to you, I'm going to keep doing what I want to do, even though it's doing them no good. Mm-hmm. And instead you use manipulation to persuade them that it is bad without directly saying that, and you drive them out of that bad habit, whatever it may mm-hmm. be. And it's another form of positive manipulation. So there's a lot of good ways it can be used if it's used correctly.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, because I wrote down the definition of positive manipulation. It's using influence and persuasion techniques to encourage individuals or teams to achieve certain goals that align both with personal and organizational interests. And I also was listening to a podcast earlier today that, how you're saying, you want to try and persuade them or influence them to do or work in a certain way.
Yeah.
And that that podcast was saying that there's three levels of, three dimensions of leadership. It was love, respect, and fear. So it was the combination of building, be right in the middle of that triangle, yeah. Building enough fear and respect that someone's going to listen to you.
Yeah.
And build enough respect and love that someone's going to want to come work with you, or, build getting a certain combination of those three so that people will listen to what you have to say and not want to revolt. So I think there's a big connection with manipulation to influence, and especially confidence as well.
Yeah.
Because I think you definitely need to have confidence and influence depending on what situation it is. I would assume mostly we're probably going to be talking about workplace kind of manipulation, or just general manipulation. Definitely with workplace, you definitely need to have confidence and a good amount of influence to be able to manipulate your employees in a certain way.
Yeah, because there's two sides of manipulation. You have persuasion, is getting people to do the things that they want to do, and then you have coercion, which is getting people to do the things that they don't want to do. Mm-hmm. And as a good leader, I feel like you have to be able to do both, because it's a lot easier to persuade someone than to coerce them. Mm-hmm. Because if you're coercing someone, you're pushing them to there's cleaning tasks I have to do at work that I definitely had to be coerced into doing, because mm-hmm. it was there's no way in hell I'm doing that. But that's where the fear side of that triangle comes in, because I'd get yelled at if I didn't do it, and I'd get in trouble. So I was like, all right, well, yeah. I guess I'm going to do it.
Yeah, because that's exactly what his point was in the podcast, was you have to have a certain amount of fear in the workplace. You have to be kind of feared as a leader.
Yeah.
For the fact that, if someone does something wrong, they know that they're going to have some sort of consequence to it.
Yeah.
Now, I go back and forth with that with our work, because I don't really think there's a lot of we're going to do this, but then that doesn't really happen. I think it's more of a shift level than a manager level, because our manager will say whatever and it just won't happen.
Yeah.
It's funny. This is kind of related to work. Because in the other episode, you said that when somebody would come up to you and they would ask you a question, you would just blurt out an answer, right?
Blow it out, yeah, right away.
What gives you the, this is funny, what gives you the audacity to think that you can act on that impulse? Like, I'm not saying it as like, what's wrong with you for trying to, I'm thinking of like, what gives you that confidence to know that you can just blurt out an answer and they're gonna just believe you on it?
Because, I mean, it was harder to do when I was younger because I didn't have as much confidence in my answers and it wasn't as believable. So whatever it could have been, I wouldn't fire it off like that, or I wouldn't say it at all. I'd just keep it in. But I mean, I've come to realize, because I've semi like studied manipulation and how it works and how the brain works. And I've learned that, like, if you're confident with your answer, no matter whether it's right or wrong, no matter if you're bullshitting or not bullshitting, most of the time, if you sound confident, people are going to believe you and not question you. And once I learned that, and as long as I have a baseline knowledge of whatever I'm talking about, like, I can't just spew bullshit on a topic that I don't know anything about and be convincing. But if I have a baseline and I think I know I'm right, I can get it off right away and not have a second thought about it, because I'm confident enough in myself and confident in the fact that they're probably not going to challenge me that I can do it.
That actually leads into another thing. Is there certain characteristics of certain individuals that makes you think, okay, I'm just going to do it? And then let's say there's somebody else and you're like, okay, maybe I actually have to give them a straight up, like a real answer and think about it, because they're going to come at me and be like, oh, are you sure? Like, you're wrong. I think you're wrong about that.
Yeah, I mean, like, that also comes with how well I know a person, I feel like. Like, I don't think I do that as much with people I'm not familiar around, because I don't know if they're going to check me or not. But someone that I've done it to 10 times, I know they're never going to challenge me. They're never going to pull out their phone and Google it. So I can just spit it out because they're going to think it's right either way. And it also comes with the level of intelligence I think you're at, because the smarter you are, the more possibility that you're going to challenge what I say.
So you think
it comes with the level of familiarity with the person and the level of intelligence that I hold you at.
Yeah, that makes sense for...
Like, how often do I do that shit to you? How often do I ever just spit some...
I don't know. Probably never, or maybe... I don't know.
It's a lot. If I do it to you, it's a lot fewer times than most other people.
Yeah. I just think, especially knowing who my family, like, knows who I am, I'm very, like, logical. So, like, if something doesn't make sense, I'm like, I would fact check you for sure.
And I'm the exact same way. I will fact check someone 100%, but I also understand that 95% of people don't care enough to do that.
Yeah.
They don't care about expanding their knowledge, so if someone tells them something, they'll usually just believe it and not care enough to double check it.
So that would also make those people easier to manipulate then, right?
100%.
Because they don't question no matter who the authority is, they just would assume that you're right because you're above them, no matter what.
And another big part of that is because of the way I carry myself and because of the way I use manipulation to, like, just make people like me, because I always want everyone, even if I don't like them, to think I'm their friend, so that there's never bad blood and I have more control over them. And when there's that level of respect, it's a lot easier to do too.
So how would you build your own confidence, or how did you build your own confidence when it comes to carrying yourself better to allow people to give you more respect than somebody else?
Honestly, a lot of it is just your interactions with people. When other people see the way that you interact with people, it's knowing your worth and your intelligence levels in this aspect. Like, I know I'm smart. I know I'm smarter than a lot of people. And that kind of gives me confidence to say, hey, I know how to work with your mind. And a lot of it is also just understanding psychology and the way that most people think. And understanding that will bring you leaps and bounds farther in life, because if you understand how people think, you will be able to control them no matter what, almost. I mean, because there's times I can manipulate people above me. Like, it doesn't it doesn't really matter the power dynamic of it, because I've still done it to people above me in the workplace, or just people that should be smarter than me.
So what do you think do you think that's considered positive manipulation, or do you think the way of like carrying yourself to make people think you're going to tell them a certain thing or make them respect you a little bit more, do you think that's more of a negative thing?
I think it can be both. It depends on the way you use that power of being able to do that. Like, I don't like manipulating people into personal gain, and that's why I wouldn't necessarily say it's a negative form of manipulation, because it's more so I manipulate people into respect and thinking that I'm their best friend, I'm there for them, solely due to the fact that they're behind me and they have my back and they're not going to fucking snake on me because of it. And I use it more so to protect myself.
That leads me to, like, there's a few tactics that I was reading in this book that allow you, I would say, positive manipulate each other, or positively manipulate other people. So there's a list of them. And one of them is just simply smiling. Like, let's say somebody walks into the store, walking around, and just giving them like a smile makes them have such a better outlook on who you are as a person.
Yeah, and versus grimacing at them.
Yeah, because it's like you see people walking around, and if you see someone that looks just pissed off, and they may not be pissed off, you wouldn't want to interact with them at all. It just seems like they're not a positive person. You don't want to bother them because there might be something going on, when in reality they could be completely happy and fine. They just have
an RBF.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, I base a lot of my interactions off of body language. Like, I won't, if someone looks pissed off, I don't want to talk to them. That's 100% right. I will usually let that conversation go by the wayside. And
then there's a few other ones, and I'll just go through all of them really quick. Being genuinely interested in others, know everyone's name and call them by it. We'll stop there for right now. But I think the being genuinely interested in others is such a great way to, I would say, positive manipulate someone, because like I said in the last podcast, if you wanted to go out and make friends, learning about the other person is going to make you so many more friends than it would be if you were to just try and teach them about yourself.
Yeah, that's another side of what I just said. I told you last week, I never talk about myself. I always let the other person talk. And that's where a lot of that respect comes from too, is they're like, oh, wow, he cares about me. He listens to everything I say about myself. He never really talks about himself. He lets me talk about myself. Most people don't let me do that. And it builds a level of respect that most people don't gain because they only want to talk about themselves.
Mm-hmm. And that aligns with one of my goals, that I want to, either talk to more people or just, be interested in more people, because I do find myself talking about myself relatively a lot.
Yeah.
And I do catch myself sometimes, like, I don't want to, most people, like you said last podcast, would just be like, I.
Yeah.
And I've really been trying to, if I hear something that pops up in a conversation, I'd be like, oh, okay, how would you do that? Or why do you like doing that? Like, I had a conversation with this person earlier, and they actually asked me about school for some reason at work. And I started having conversation with them. And usually I would be super, I would say, introverted, and I would just either come up with some answer that would just shut them up, or just have them, just at a weird point, I'd be like, oh, have a great day.
Yeah.
But then I tried to be actually interested in what they were talking about. And the wall that I hit would be like, okay, do I ask what they want to do, like why they're going to school, or do I try and just get them away from me?
Yeah.
And today I actually pushed and said, like, oh, hey, like, what are you going to school? And it sparked like a whole big conversation that, one, allowed me to learn more about that person, but also, two, it definitely made them think that I wanted to talk to them.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm iffy about it, because I don't necessarily want to talk to you, but I also want to get better at talking to people.
Skills.
So it's like, yes, I'm kind of using these tactics to influence others into liking me and talking to me, but I'm also benefiting off of it from it as well. So I do think I'm not manipulating anybody in any way, like to harm. I'm literally just learning about them.
Yeah.
But I guess you could say it's a little bit negative in terms of, like, I'm trying to get something out of them.
Yeah.
But I'm really trying not to do that, because, like, in the book that I was reading, How to Win Friends and Influence Others, it was a section about if you're trying to only find value in people, like there has to be some sort of exchange, some sort of equivalent exchange. Like, oh, I talked to you and you learned this from me. What are you going to give me? Like, what value are you going to provide to me?
What are you bringing to the table?
Yeah, and I'm trying not to do that because I do think, obviously, I'm going to be able to talk to a lot more people when I go into it kind of with a blank slate, knowing that I'm not expecting anything from them. I just want to learn from them and see what they have to say. There was another situation at work today where I do think it would help if I found someone that would have connections to, like, get a internship or something in, like, the job that I want to go into.
Yeah.
And this guy walked in and he was wearing a data what is it? Data sensitive science jacket from the University of Chicago. And I'm like, do I start a conversation about this? Because I'm going into data science. Like, do I want to start a conversation and be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. But I held back. So it's like, I'm not sure if that's okay to go on by trying to find value out of people, or, you know, manipulate them in a way that gains me something. Obviously, that is like the definition of negative manipulation, or just manipulation in general.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find like that in between that it's right.
But like at the same time, you have to think about it like this. Like, you may look at it in a negative light, but doing that and bringing up that conversation to them probably isn't going to do them any harm. Yeah, you're gaining something from it, but they're not really losing anything besides a 10-minute conversation. And that may push you forward into your career, or whatever that conversation may be about. So sometimes it's good to take the leap and do that, because yeah, you're gaining something from it, but you also should be worrying about yourself first. And even if you're making a gain, look at it as they're not losing anything, and it's going to push me forward, so I'm going to do it.
I guess I'm also thinking that I'm not providing any value to them, when I guess maybe even that conversation was probably some sort of value, because maybe they don't have anybody that asks them.
Yeah.
So definitely trying to figure out like the positive light when it comes to that.
Yeah. And you also have to think about it, like, how many conversations have you had like that you've never gained anything from?
That's true.
So it happens to everyone, and you have to understand that.
And actually, I wanted to talk about this as well. I think that leads into like becoming a mentor for somebody, and I feel like I've been a mentor for a lot of other people.
Yeah.
Especially like gym related stuff, and recently like a little bit of finance and stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've been looking for my sense of a mentor. So I also think that obviously that would lead into trying to find someone that would help me get to where I'm at. I think it's just kind of like that. I want someone to be smarter than me. Like, there's a quote, and it's, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's kind of like my mindset, is I want to speak to more people, because I know I have the better chance at finding that mentor that I want to find.
Yeah. And I want to touch back. You were talking about how you didn't necessarily want to have that conversation with the person, but it pushed you forward in just the aspect of like the social skills and being able to do that. That is a very slippery slope for me, because yes, sometimes I do it for the sake of what we're talking about today, the manipulation of it, the gaining their respect. But at the same time, sometimes I can't control it just because I'm a people pleaser. So that also becomes a very slippery slope, because when you have that one conversation with that person, sometimes it turns into everyday half-an-hour conversations with that person, and you can't say no to them because you're a people pleaser. So that can become a very slippery slope. So I see why you could be anxious about doing that, because you may look at it as you're gaining something and they're not. But at the same time, they may look at it as, I have a friend that wants to talk to me about this, and they're going to talk to you about it as much as possible. And then you become a shitty person if you say, hey, I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Yeah.
So that's where like it can get complicated.
I definitely think that there's definitely have to be context, because obviously if we're at work and like, I feel like if you had to shun them away and be like, sorry, I can't talk, but like you have to go do something else, you would assume that if they even want to really be your friend, they would understand that you are at work. And for me, like, I feel like in that situation today, I had to decide between if I really cared about talking to this person or not, because usually that's what it is. It's like, do I care to really learn about this person or do I just want to go on about my day?
Yeah.
Now, it does, I feel like having conversations really does make the time go by a little bit faster. But related to like trying to make sure you're not people pleasing or trying not to make them feel bad for like you having to go do something.
Yeah.
I definitely had an inkling in the back of my head that like the store was starting to drown because I was having this longer conversation. And once I finished and like they walked away, Eliza was like, dude, so much food came through when you were having that conversation. Like we needed help.
That happens to me a lot when there's only 3 of us at work and a customer will come in and I'll have a fucking 20-minute conversation with them and they'll be two-parting with 10 cars in the drive-thru. And it's like, fuck, I don't want to tell this person to fuck off and stop talking to me, but I kind of need to. But I can't because I'm a people pleaser. So I have to just keep talking to them until they end the conversation because it is so hard for me to end a conversation with someone. And the other side of that too, like I don't know when to like leave people's houses even because of that. Like if I'm invited somewhere, like I want them to kick me out because I don't know if it's disrespectful for me to say, all right, I'm bored of you. I want to go home.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of off topic. But how do you think reverse psychology plays into manipulation too? That I was thinking about this last night, and I don't know 100% if I feel like I feel like it is, but I don't really know how to define it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what would be your definition of reverse psychology then?
I guess it is. Yeah, it would definitely be manipulation. I don't know. It was like 3 a.m. when I was thinking, 2:30 or 3 in the morning when I was thinking about this, and I was kind of tired. But I do feel like reverse psychology is 100% just manipulation. Actually, now that I'm in a better headspace and thinking clearer, I don't know why I wrote that.
It's
down.
either very similar or they're the same thing.
Yeah. Do you think it works? Like, have you ever seen? Because I've definitely used reverse psychology a lot on people because it. Have you ever seen it work in action?
I can't recall a situation where I used reverse psychology.
So here's my situation, and it happens a lot at work. Like, say the cafe floors aren't done yet at like 7:30. I always have to do it early. If I do it later, it doesn't work. But at like 7 or 7:30, I'll be like, fuck the cafe floors, we're not doing them tonight. I don't care. And then usually someone else will go do them. Or I'll say, I'm not going to fucking do this. I'm not making these backups. And someone else will do them. When I know that those backups need to be made, and if no one else does them, I'll go do them.
I think it turns into manipulation when, let's say you have someone in that situation that you know if you use reverse psychology, they're going to do it. Then that's definitely manipulation. Because if you have someone that's going to act on your reverse psychology and you personally know that, you know for sure they're going to listen to you, that's probably some sort of manipulation, or it is manipulation because
100%.
You know that they're going to do that. You know they're going to listen to you. Now, I do think that reverse psychology comes in like there could be the opposite where it's like you just say that. Obviously, either no one's going to listen to you or obviously there's the other situation where they could be like, oh, maybe I should do that, but not because like they're not getting manipulated by you at all. It's just, I don't know, maybe they're like, they feel bad about themselves. Like, oh, I should do this, or I should do this so that I'm helping our teammates out or our coworkers out tomorrow or whatever.
Yeah.
So I definitely think they probably go hand in hand, of course, at like certain situations, but
I mean, I'm trying to think of a scenario where you'd use reverse psychology that it wouldn't. But so you are always manipulating their mind when you use reverse psychology. So even if it's not the physical manifestation of manipulation, I do feel like it is always manipulation in one way or another. So I don't know. I feel like it does work on some people, but other people can sense it and detect it. Usually a manipulator cannot be manipulated. So if you're good with the tactics of manipulation, usually those tactics won't work on you because you'll see right through them. But you will still, at least in my experience, let them do what they're trying to do. Just to say, hey, you're trying to manipulate me, and have that in the back of your head and know that, so that you can hold them to a different standard than you would to, like, the people you'd control. It's almost like you have a mutual respect for people that can do that.
For your fellow manipulator,
Yeah.
you guys have mutual respect. I can't think of any situation where I've used reverse psychology.
It's hard to think of off the top of my head, too. Besides the one at work, I can't really think of other times.
So, do you think reverse psychology would be like, okay, so in that book as well, there was a topic about how to, it was about arguments and how you should really just avoid arguments in general.
Yeah.
So even if somebody they come out with some fact that they think is true, something that they think is true, and you know that it's not, is it worth letting them believe that they're right, even though you're not?
Yes.
You know that you're right.
100%. I don't argue with stupid people because you will never change their opinion. They are stupid and they're arguing for the sake of arguing. They are not arguing for the sake of gaining knowledge. So it is never worth your time to do it because no matter what, they're going to think they're right. So instead of arguing, I either just don't respond or I'll be like, yeah, you know what, you're right. Just even though I know they're wrong, I'll let them think they're right because I don't want to argue with the stupid person.
That's definitely an issue I have because I feel like I'm so logical. If someone says something, I'll probably get into an argument with them. So after reading that chapter in the book, I definitely have changed my mindset on it.
Yeah.
One, it's just not worth the time. And if you think about it in like a business sense, you could be right in that sense. Let's say someone comes in and complains about some sort of thing that you're selling and you argue with them back and forth, and you are right because obviously you probably would know if you're the owner of the business or you work for that business.
Yeah.
But yes, you may be right, but you lost a customer in the
future.
In the future because of that.
That's why they say that the customer is always right because it's better to take that. Like at work now, for example, it's better for the company to take that $6 loss on that one drink and remake it over losing a customer for life. Because once you get into that argument with them and you shit on them and you're like, yeah, you're a fucking idiot, you're wrong, I'm not fixing this for you. Yeah, you may have upheld your intelligence and been like, I know I'm right, fuck you, but they're never gonna come back because you disrespected them.
So do you think that's in a way manipulation as well, to manipulate them into like at what point do you think you would go to tell them that they're wrong? Because if they come in and say this thing multiple times,
once they've become a problem customer in whatever the business may be, if they're a problem customer and they're coming in and asking for a refund every time that they come into your business, then it's not worth it anymore because they're trying to manipulate you into getting everything for free. So you have to draw the line on when you're just keeping a customer versus when you're being manipulated. Because we definitely have people like that too. So I don't know, there's a fine line there because it's once they've done it 5 or 6 times, then you have to start saying, hey, maybe they're doing this on purpose and nothing is actually wrong.
So you would say that there's multiple ways of, would you say that's positive manipulation then? Because obviously it's like you can use manipulation to either make other people like you, make people talk to you, gain value from them without harming them. But would you also say that's positive manipulation too, because you're avoiding an argument or avoiding like situations that can cause harm to maybe not just you, but like your coworkers?
I think you could call it positive in that aspect. It could also, because you're making them happy, so they're happy, you're happy because you don't have to deal with the problem. You're not taking much of a loss. So in that aspect, yes, I think it could be positive. But at the same time, I think you could look at it as neutral, or even there's negative sides of it too, so I'd say more so neutral because you made them happy and they're happy and you're happy at the moment, but the only reason you made them happy was for future gain for yourself. So they're happy in the moment, but they're going to keep spending money with you, and that makes you happy in the future, in the long run. So you're gaining a lot more than that person is in the long run. So I think there's a neutrality to it, really, because yes, it's positive for you and the person that you helped and the people around you at work in that moment. but in reality, you made them happy in that moment for personal future gain, or future gain for the business, but I'm just going to say personal to make it easy.
Yeah, so you don't have to technically deal with them anymore at that moment. That makes sense. It's just
You're only making them happy to get them out of your face.
yeah. I think it would definitely be different if obviously if it was like your business or something, if you're trying to keep them from coming back.
Yeah.
So do you think most of the time when these people are trying to, I guess there's a difference when there's someone that's trying to pull a fast one or someone that's complaining about a certain thing.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's probably some sort of truth with that. So would you suggest trying to find the truth in, like, okay, somebody comes in and says that their drink was made wrong, it doesn't taste right, and if you look at it logically, you're like, okay, who was on bar at that time?
Yeah.
And you know, okay, it was that one partner that it's like, that might make sense. You know, that might make sense why that doesn't exactly taste right. So maybe, do you think that's the part of the truth that, yes, they may be complaining about a certain thing and maybe trying to get something out of you, but should you try and always find a truth in somebody trying to start an argument?
I think you should always at least somewhat look into the truth, because, like, there's situations where, like, you may fix the problem for them, but you should still also say, hey, this was your fault. Like, say they mobile order a hot drink and they wanted it iced, and they come in and they're like, hey, you ordered this hot, not iced. Next time, make sure you order it iced, because, like, just in that example, sometimes a hot drink costs less than an iced drink. Mm-hmm. So if they're doing that 4 or 5 times in a row,
Yeah.
eventually the right thing to do would be go refund them for the hot drink and recharge them for the cold drink, so that they're not scamming 20 cents out. It's only 20 cents, but it's just the mindset of it. Mm-hmm. They're doing it on purpose once they've done it 5 or 6 times, because they know it's 20 cents cheaper. They're trying to save themselves 20 cents every time they order that drink.
Do you think it's worth the time though? Like, I get that they come in and do it.
That's why I said
times.
It's the right thing to do, but sometimes it's not worth the time. It's not worth the argument. But that's where you have to pick your battles. Like, yes, in that situation, it may not be worth the time, but say every time they come in, they're like, oh, I forgot to put cold foam and caramel drizzle on it. Now that's a $2 modification to the drink. And then you have to start charging them for it, I feel. Mm-hmm. So you have to pick and choose your battles in that situation. And it's also good to look at it and look at what may be right or wrong in the situations, just so that you have an understanding of it. Because usually when someone's trying to pull a fast one on you, if you understand manipulation and the way it works, you can usually, like I said earlier, manipulators have the mutual respect for each other. You can look at that situation and know that they're trying to manipulate it in their favor, because you understand what they're doing.
So there comes to a point in, like, manipulation when there is, like, you need to step in and you need to say something, because yes, you know what they're doing, and yes, it may not be worth your time, but I think also putting people in their place sometimes and letting them know that, like, for example, manipulation to manipulation. Yeah. Like, you know what they're doing, and letting them know that you know what they're doing.
And a big part of that is if, like, you're in, like, a leadership role and you can understand that and see that, you may not be there the next time they do it, and they may cause problems for someone else that doesn't understand it as well. And you also want to prevent that from happening and alleviate that stress from the other people. So then sometimes it's a good idea to step in and fix it, just so that other people aren't getting screamed and bitched at for a mistake that wasn't really a mistake. It's just someone conniving and trying to fucking get free shit.
Yeah. I think it definitely relates to, like, the triangle we were talking about earlier, because I think you need to build a sense of fear, respect, and love for whoever it is. Like, that customer has to have some sort of fear, respect, and love for either all the workers there, the manager, whatever, to at some point know that, okay, I respect these people enough that I'm not going to do this anymore, or I respect that this specific coworker or my man. Like, for example, let's say you need to have respect enough in the managerial position so that you can have your coworkers or employees obey you in a way that they know to follow up on certain standards that they have to follow.
But you also need to have them love and respect you enough that they don't fucking dread coming into work every day because you're there.
Exactly. And that actually, I have a question related to, like, kind of this situation in general. So when is somebody taking advantage of your generosity, and how did it cause you to kind of lose confidence in yourself? And then what did you do to bounce back from that?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, like, you've seen it. You've known me for years. You've seen a lot of people Because yes, as much as I say I'm a manipulator and I understand how this shit works, because I'm also a people pleaser, I have let a lot of people take advantage of my generosity because I don't like the fact that I'm really good at manipulation. It just kind of happened for me. So in turn, I also try to be very generous and giving and like, I mean, there's been plenty of times where I've like loaned people money or different things and never gotten it back, or I've had people fucking take advantage of the fact that I had a car and drove them around everywhere. And it's, you kind of just, you have to let it happen for a while to really see if they're taking advantage of you or if it just happens that they may need rides and you're their most reliable friend and they genuinely care about you, but you're the only person in the moment that can help them with that. So you have to look at that first, and then you can pinpoint whether they're trying to manipulate you and take advantage of your generosity or if they just genuinely need your help. Because it's good to help a friend if they genuinely need your help. But if they're not really your friend, and you're just a ride to them, then you need to put your foot down and say, fuck you. And I mean, I've had that happen a lot of times, and it has broken my trust a lot in a lot of people, and I don't trust many people anymore. But honestly, to bounce back from that, all I had to do was understand that I need to see a real person before I can truly show my real self and be generous to them. And it's helped with a lot of like it's helped me mentally because I've made my circle a lot smaller and driven out a lot of people that in the past had used me and manipulated me into just being there as a service, not a friend. Mm-hmm. And it can take time to bounce back from situations like that, especially if it's a lot of people that have done it to you because you're too blind to your generosity. Mm-hmm. But I think just building confidence in yourself and knowing your worth is the best way to bounce back. And that's really what I did, is just knowing they're not worth my time because they're not doing anything for me. And it's got to be a two-way street in a friendship. And if they're seeing it as a one-lane road, then you got to kick them to the curb.
Yeah. I forgot what book it was in, but that kind of reminded me. It was like pretty much you just put trust into somebody and you just allow them to go do whatever. Let's say they're asking you for a ride.
Yeah.
And your trust in them is like you just expect them one day to just maybe do something for you or be there when you need it. And until they show you something that proves that they're not there for you, that's when you can cut it off. Like never have any expectations for anybody, but once you can see that they're either using you for a certain thing, that's when you can put your foot down and be like, that's it. Because I think learning and realizing how, like, I think that's important to realize who's actually there for you and who you know isn't just using you for what you have or whatever.
Who's in your foxhole?
Yeah, who's in your foxhole? I mean, it's crazy because, like, I mean, you said that you cut down your circle pretty much, and I don't really talk to many people. My circle is relatively small or pretty small, so it's like trying to open it up and find more people is difficult because it takes so long to build that level of trust with people that you have in your inner circle that it's hard to bring people into it. It's just like I'm looking for, a certain group of people. Like I don't want to just let anybody in. Yeah. Like there's certain people that I just, I talk to you, but I wouldn't hang out with you. Yeah. There's certain friends for certain situations, but like.
And that's where you draw the line between real friends and acquaintances.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I feel like it's. Obviously, it's good to do that because you shouldn't just let everybody into your circle.
Yeah.
And you kind of realize who is really there for you after a long period of time. You just like either never hear from them or they never ask you like what's going on. And I think that's what really happened after high school for sure. Like I get everybody's busy and stuff, but like you feel like you have like this group of friends, but then you just like stop talking to them forever.
Yeah.
And you really know there's a big difference when literally somebody that you met online, like personally me, like I met online, was there for me more than any of my friends were in high school.
Yeah.
Or most of my friends were in high school. You just know that this is how it's supposed to be. Like that's how a friend should be.
Yeah.
Right? It's not that
they should be there for you through thick and thin.
Mm-hmm.
And this it's kind of off topic, but it's also kind of on what we were just talking about. I wrote down a few laws from the 48 Laws of Power, and one of them is use absence to increase respect and honor, create value through scarcity. And I feel like I am extremely good at that because I don't know if we talked about this off camera or on camera, but we definitely talked about a little bit of it on camera where I said it's not worth your time to just go sit in a room and hang out with people. We have to be doing something productive for me to actually come out of the house. And that relates heavy here because I feel like people are like, it's almost like an honor for me to come hang out with a lot of people because I've made myself so scarce and I don't ever give my time to people. And that's almost like, it's a manipulation tactic too, because when you create scarcity with yourself and you don't make yourself available to just anyone, you become like the talk of the town. People think about you more. You come up in conversations more. It almost creates like an aura around you that creates like a fantasy of yourself, and people think higher of you because they're like, oh, he's too busy for me. He must be doing great things. And it's, in reality, I just don't want to waste my time hanging out with people and doing nothing productive. But in their minds, it's like, he's doing big things. If he can make time for me, I feel honored.
Yeah. It's like supply and demand.
Yeah, exactly. It's supply and demand in the mental sense.
And I think that's also something related to like last episode, because I feel like I said that I want to go out more and do more things.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the same thing for me, because it's like I feel like people expect me to say no. Like they expect me to go do something or switch shifts
because
with them.
you have better things to do because you've made yourself scarce.
Yeah, so
that's
it's
exactly
like,
yeah.
Yeah, so it's like when I actually do say, okay, yeah, maybe I will go do that, or I'll
They're
come
like,
with you.
fuck
They're
yeah,
like,
let's go.
Yeah, or like I show up at some, random like graduation party or birthday party or something. I don't know if everyone's excited to see me because like I am who I am, or it's for that reason in general.
Because you've
like,
created a scarcity and they're like, holy fuck, Nick made time to be here.
I don't know. I also feel like that's not, because in a way it's like imposter syndrome again. It's like I know I'm not anyone that's important. I'm not anyone that's important. So like showing up, it's like it's just I showed up because I wanted to show up this time.
Yes, you could look at that like that, but at the same time, in the sense of like power and manipulation, going back to the 48 Laws of Power, even if you feel that way, you never want to show it because you want to seem like you're on top always, and you want to like I have another one here, make your accomplishments seem effortless, and a lot of those things are, even if you don't realize it, manipulation tactics. And when you're doing it subconsciously or consciously, it's still almost making people think you're better than them and you have more power than them, and that's where it comes in. So you, even if you feel that way, you never want to say that out loud because it'll change people's opinion on you and they won't have that level of respect anymore. Obviously, it's not going to just flatline, but it may bring it from here down to here. And it can slowly dwindle the more and more they see, oh, he doesn't really believe in himself. Why should I believe in him? So it's keeping that hidden holds yourself to a higher standard with other people.
I don't know if it was a song or something, but that was part of it. It was like, I don't remember what it was, but it was related to just either not showing up and like having people see your achievements and stuff and realize like, oh, how is he doing this when, you don't expect him to do it or whatever. I can't remember exactly what it was though, but yeah, that's I do feel like I want to, I don't know. I just don't feel like I ever see that as like manipulation, but
it is.
But it is.
Yeah. You just, that's why like everyone is a manipulator, consciously or unconsciously. Everyone has manipulated someone or persuaded them or coerced them into doing something they did or want to do in their life. There's not a single person on this planet that has never manipulated anyone, because it's a lot of the things that are manipulation. Most people don't understand and realize that they're manipulation. It's just doing this or doing that. When in reality, it is manipulation. It's just a different sense than you have. It's a different sense of the word than you have the understanding of it. I don't know if I worded that properly, but so it's everyone manipulates someone or something in their lives. Because it's a very, very, very broad spectrum, and there's a lot of things that you wouldn't think are manipulation that are.
So do you think it's only manipulation when you know it's going to either harm them or you're going to get some value out of it? Like, because what if you just tell someone something just because, and you know that, you don't know you don't think about what the consequences are. You just, can you do this? Or you say a certain thing, not knowing at all. Like, you're kind of ignorant to it. Obviously, do you think that's still manipulation?
Yes, because you are changing their mind in one way or another. And that's the textbook definition of manipulation. I should have written it down, but I kind of have a rough... Oh, yeah. No, actually, I did write it down. It's when we use an indirect method to influence another person's thoughts, feelings, or behavior without the person's awareness that we've done so in a way that benefits them. So even if there's no personal gain for you or negative gain for them, if it changes their mind on whatever topic it could be, that's manipulation. Because you're manipulating their mind into thinking something different.
So couldn't anything be manipulation?
Yes.
Then? Like literally anything. You're always manipulating.
Social media ads. We talked about this last week too, and it brings me into another thing that I wanted to say. But social media is manipulation because, like, we were talking about all these influencers that show all these good things in their lives, and they're manipulating you into thinking that they have the perfect life, nothing's ever gone wrong for them. But that's only because you don't see their problems in videos. You don't see the struggles that they go through because they're manipulating you into thinking that they have a perfect life. And that doesn't, in technicality's sake, they don't gain anything from that. You don't gain anything from that, but it makes you think that they have a perfect life, and that's still manipulation. Because it's not the true happenings.
So if you're trying to not be manipulated, what do you think you would do? Like, I get we were saying that everything is manipulation, but do you think it's worth to try not to be manipulated, or do you think it's just gonna happen, so you kind of have to accept it?
I don't think that's something you can do consciously. You just have to be not easily influenced, like, and you have to not care. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example. Like, I mean, just using social media again, if you're looking at social media and, like, you're looking at bodybuilders and you're like, this guy's huge, I feel like shit, I need to be bigger. They could be, if they have, like, fitness products, they could be trying to influence you with their body to be buying their fitness products. But if you sit there and say, I don't care what they look like, I only care about what I look like, then you're not being manipulated into thinking you look shitty because you don't look like them, and then you're not going to be spending the money on their product. So it comes with your ability to be influenced and whether you take things to heart and take influence easily.
I'm just trying to find the fine line of, like, negative influence to positive, because if you think about it, someone could be an influencer. Literally, it's in the name, right?
Yeah.
They've built enough influence that they put out a product that is simply to help people. There's no BS in it at all. It's to simply help people, but they have to use their influence to manipulate people into buying that product.
Yeah.
Is that still negative manipulation? Because, like, even though their sole reason with this product or whatever is to put out content that is giving them free information about health or whatever, but then their product is also, it's backed by science. Like, they want to help people either build muscle, lose weight, whatever. Is that still negative manipulation because they're trying to gain something from it?
In a sense, yes, because yes, they may have put that product out to help people, but there could also be people that buy that product that it doesn't help. and then you negatively influence them to buy your product when it did absolutely nothing for them. So even though you didn't do it intentionally, it still could be negative manipulation because they bought it, it didn't do anything for them, and now they're angry. And a lot of those people will be like, this will definitely help you with this problem or that problem, and that's negative manipulation because you can't say 100% that it's going to work for every person on this planet.
Yeah, everybody's different.
Yeah.
This has really opened my mind to that everything is manipulation.
Everything is manipulation.
And it's interesting because I didn't go into this thinking at all that that would be like one of the lessons I learned from it.
Yeah.
And that kind of changed my mindset of feeling bad about doing something for my own gain, because I feel like everybody's trying to do that.
Exactly.
No matter what. There's always some sort of value that you're getting out of either a conversation or purchasing something from someone or selling something to someone. You always have to use some sort of manipulation. Obviously there's better uses or positive ways to do it than others. But there is always going to be some sort of manipulation into it.
Yeah, because if you're changing their mind or you're influencing them in a way that wasn't going to happen before you came into the picture, that's manipulation. No matter what the gain or loss is, no matter what the intentions are, it's still manipulation. Mm-hmm. That's most modern therapists use cognitive behavior therapy, CBT. And all that is manipulating you into solving your own problems. They will ask open-ended questions. I don't really have any examples, but they'll sit there and ask you open-ended questions and let you answer and solve your problems yourself. And that's all they do. And all they're doing is manipulating in your mind into fixing the problem itself.
That actually is interesting because in that book as well, the How to Win Friends and Influence Others, there is a situation or example where this company called the owner of another company and said that the logs that they sold them were not up to grade. So the point of this chapter was to basically, in a way, allow them to show, basically tell you what's wrong and make them realize that they're wrong. So the situation was the guy went to the log mill or whatever, and he's like, okay, can you show me what's exactly wrong, or show me the bad logs that you show me or that you said that were bad. And he's like, okay, put the good ones in one pile and the bad ones in the other.
And he couldn't separate them.
So he started separating them, and he was like, okay, well, what's wrong with this one? And by asking him questions about what exactly was wrong with him, or what exactly was wrong with those logs, it changed his mindset to oh, I don't exactly know what's wrong with these logs. I was just kind of being a pessimist about it.
Yeah.
And it made him open up and be like, oh, I'm not a expert in this specific log. So I just didn't know what the difference in grades were. So allowing people to kind of fix their own problems manipulates them into one, realizing that you were right and there wasn't anything wrong to begin with. But also what that does is it kind of fixes the relationship that you have with them.
Yeah.
So if someone comes,
because you're not telling them they're wrong, they're telling you you're right.
Yeah.
And it is a lot better for them to tell you that you're right than you tell them they're wrong.
Yeah.
Because there's the positive connotation of them realizing that mistake themselves versus the negative connotation of you saying, hey, you're wrong, and then they're angry. Even if they know you're right, they're still going to be angry because you told them they're wrong.
Yeah, I think the reason that those two chapters that it was about arguing and about the other one was because realistically that specific idea would lead into arguments. And if you're going to say hey, you're wrong, that's going to spark an argument.
Yeah.
And like I said, if you, for a business stance in that specific situation, if you tell that guy that he's wrong, he's just going to say, these aren't up to grade. I don't want them. Give me my money back.
Yeah.
So it's you're losing a customer and you're losing someone that you could possibly have a connection to.
Yeah.
So I think really, that's a good way of manipulating people because by telling them that they're wrong, but having them tell themselves that they're wrong and that you're right, can it's
going to take you leaps and bounds farther in relationships.
Yeah.
I do that a lot. I let people figure out the problem themselves and make them realize that they're wrong without actually telling them that they're wrong. At work, for example, I'll be like, this is a little thing. I don't think anyone would actually be mad if I told them they were wrong in this situation, but say like say there's a pitcher of fruit juice and it's good for 3 days and today is Thursday and they put a Monday date out on it. That's 4 days. I'd be like, hey, who dated this? And whoever dated it would be like, me. Did I do it wrong? And I'd be like, what day is it today? And they'd be like, Thursday. And I'd say, what's 3 days from now? And they'd say, Sunday. And I'd be like, so why is there a Monday date out sticker on it? And they'd be like, oh, let me fix it. But that's just a little example of it.
Yeah, but that still connects. I mean, that's still relatively similar to the other example. It's like having someone realize that they're wrong. You're not telling them they're wrong. Is going to build a relationship to like they trust you and that you know what you're talking about and build respect for you because you're not just coming up to and be like, what the hell is this? Like, you're doing this completely wrong.
Yeah.
And it it also builds kind of like a love for you as a person because it's like, okay, they allowed me to fix it
and figure it out myself. And it makes them feel more worth.
Yeah, and then they trust you to come back with other different situations depending on, whatever that situation is. They come back to you for assistance if they ever need it.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a good way to think about things because I also do have a tendency of just telling people that they're wrong. I don't think at work very often, and it also does depend on who it is. Like if it's Luke, I'm going to tell him that he's wrong for sure. Like
yeah,
I'm just gonna...
but you and him have that level of respect. I have no problem telling like you or Luke or fucking Christian or Tony that they're wrong. But someone that I'm not as close with, I'm going to use that cycle that I just said before to fix their problem because I don't want them getting angry. And I want them, like I said, like an hour, it was probably half an hour ago. I want them to have my back and have that respect for me. So I need to build that respect before I can talk to them like that.
So how do you think you would go about that if with these two, like, values together? How do you think if you had somebody that came in and they were super, super upset about something, how do you think you would go about fixing it?
Well, see, it depends on, they're super upset. If they're going to be respectful to me, I think I'll fix the problem for them. I'll figure out what the problem is.
Let's say they were upset. Like they came in upset, but they weren't being necessarily respectful, but it's kind of like, do you think you would put yourself in their shoes and trying to understand? I
always do. I always try to put myself in their shoes, but sometimes I put myself in their shoes and I'm like, yeah, you're a fucking idiot. And I've had arguments with customers at work because they came in screaming at me and I've straight up yelled back because they were being unreasonable. So it depends on the request and what they're angry about. And if it's a genuine concern and like we really if someone comes in freaking out, screaming at me because they have a dairy allergy and we gave them fucking 2%, okay, I'm not going to be mad at you. Yeah, I could have fucking killed you. But if they're coming in to scream at me because we didn't put fucking strawberries in their drink, you can go fuck yourself. Like,
yeah, I think it's really tough to talk about these situations because they're so minuscule. Like if somebody comes in and complains about like something like that, realistically, we don't care that much.
Yeah, it's
so
not...
like if there is a more personal situation with like either a friend or like a business partner, if you're like I said in that business, I guess there would be a lot different kind of ways to try and
because there's a lot more weight that holds. But if it's a situation that doesn't hold much weight, it shouldn't affect you. And that's also, I feel like you can measure intelligence with that by how angry people get over minuscule things, because if they're going to sit there and fucking rage over something that's going to take 30 seconds to fix,
they have bigger problems.
Yeah, they have bigger problems. They're probably not very smart, and they're probably just taking out their anger on you over other things.
Yeah, that shows that they have some sort of underlying issue that they just want to either take out on you, and realistically, that's not your problem, because you could go to the depths to like try and really understand them and like calm them down and stuff, but on such a minuscule level, that's when you kind of have to decide if it's really worth it or not.
Yeah, you have to have the emotional intelligence to say, hey, they're not really mad at me, this isn't worth my time, and just let it go. You can't let it get under your skin.
Yeah, I think that's such a huge thing to like, depending on how fast somebody can calm down from whatever the situation is. Obviously, there's big and small, but especially if it's a small situation, they can't come down from it. Like it completely ruins their day. Like they don't put strawberries in your drink and you're like, oh shit, like my day is ruined. I can't believe you did this to me. Like, how could you do this to me? I want a refund, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, exactly. Like they get super angry about it. That's when you have to realize that that's definitely a way of manipulation, because they could just be lying to you. They could just trying to get something for free. But then again, you have to in a way, you could just manipulate them and just be like, sure, yeah, here, get out of here. Like, that's back to like our first concept.
Them coming in angry is still technically manipulation, because they say in their head, they're like, if I'm in here angry and screaming, I'm going to get what I want. So that's why they do it.
So let's say you were in their shoes. You were the person that was upset. You went to somewhere, right? Say you went to like Shake Shack or something, and they gave you a chicken sandwich instead of a cheeseburger. Now,
I'm jumping over the counter and buy.
So how do you think you would? Do you think would you use positive manipulation to get what you want, or would you just be straight up with them?
No, I mean, I would use positive manipulation, because like in that scenario, at least, like if you're not a fucking dick to them and you're like, hey, like I'm sorry to bother you guys, like I ordered a burger, you guys gave me a chicken sandwich, and you're nice to them and respectful to them, and you're like, it's not a big deal, don't worry. Because that's how I always am. I'm non-confrontational. I don't like fucking arguing. So I'm always going to be respectful, because I understand that it's a little mistake. And at like Shake Shack, for example, they're making, I'd say, at least 1,000 burgers a day. That's probably a good number.
Yeah.
So they're making 1,000 burgers a day. They may have fucked up on mine and 3 other people's, but that's like under 1% of the burgers that they've sent out that day. So it happens sometimes. No one's ever going to be perfect, and you have to understand that. You have to be emotionally intelligent enough to understand that people are going to make mistakes, and you can't get angry about it unless it was intentional. But if they gave me a chicken sandwich instead of a burger, oh fucking well. And if you're nice to them about it and say, hey, usually they're going to be like, keep the chicken sandwich and I'll make your burger right now. But if you're in there and you're like, you guys fucked up, I wanted a fucking burger, you gave me a fucking chicken sandwich, you just ruined my fucking day, they're going to make you give that chicken sandwich back, and they may say, hey, I'm going to give you a refund for this chicken sandwich, and you're not getting your fucking burger, get out of my store. So it's just, a lot of it comes with the level of emotional intelligence you have and understanding how people are going to react to how you react. And you can use that in your favor to manipulate the way that they react.
It's just so weird how to think that everything really is manipulation. Because it's like, let's say in that situation, you could be super pissed off and you could put on a facade and be like, I'm not pissed off. I'm just going to go up to them and be really nice.
Exactly.
And then they're going to give me everything that I want.
I've done that before, definitely.
It's just so weird because like it seems that everything, there's not a scenario I or you could think of that you couldn't find hints of manipulation in. Because I think it also goes into like what you said earlier. It's like even if you know it or not, you're somehow changing how they think about it. Because you could be doing something simply for everybody else, and it's just it hits somebody a certain way, and it either does something good, does something bad. Like it just really depends on how much you're gonna think about it and how important it is to you.
Yeah, and it could like influencers. These influencers they have millions of followers, some of them, and they don't see what's happening with the entirety of their audiences. It's impossible. So whether they know it or not, they're influencing some of these people to do good. They're influencing some of these people to do bad. They're influencing some of these people to love them, some of them to hate them. And they never see that. There's no way in hell that they're going to see that with all million people that follow them. So it's no matter whether it's conscious or unconscious, you are always manipulating something or someone.
So if you had advice to someone that wants to try and be or spread as much positive manipulation as possible, like what would you say to them?
I mean, you just have to think about how your thoughts and actions and words could affect anyone and everyone. Like you have to think of every possible scenario that it could affect someone, and if you think it could affect someone in a negative manner, you probably shouldn't be putting it out. And that if you want to be only positive manipulation with positive outcomes, which is, I will say, probably one of the hardest things you can do because everyone is different and not everyone's going to like you and not everyone's going to agree with you. So there's not really any way, like we're just saying theoretically now, but there really isn't any way that you can positively manipulate and only positively manipulate, because someone's always going to have a problem with what you say, whether it be because they think you're wrong or they're just a fucking hater and they're angry at the world, so they want to be angry at you. You're never going to 100% of the time positively manipulate. But theoretically, you'd have to look at it and say, is this going to negatively affect anyone anywhere on this planet? And if the answer is yes, you have to figure out a different way to do it.
It's kind of like you may be an apple, but not everybody likes apples.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it, because no matter what you do, someone's going to think you're wrong or hate you.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot please everybody.
I had a thought and I lost it. Maybe it'll come back.
Have you ever sensed in the moment that you were being manipulated or persuaded? Like, have you ever said, fuck them? Because I've definitely had a lot of aha moments like that where someone's halfway through fucking talking to me and I'm like, this isn't right. I know what you're doing.
I would say that there's definitely been times where, like, I don't know if I can't think of like a really negative thing, but there definitely have been times where like somebody wants you to either come out and do something or join in a game of like poker or do a whatever, and they were like, "Come on, dude!" Like I think
It's
it was
gonna
kind
be
of
a
like a
good
reverse psychology thing, like, or yeah, it's gonna be a good night. Like, come on, or like, why do you never come out, or why do you never do this?
We miss
or,
you.
Come on, we need one more person when they definitely don't. In the back of my mind, I definitely know that it's either a good situation or I know that they're either bullshitting me. But I think at that point you just have to realize like what the risks are.
Yeah.
Because like, for example, someone could be really good at poker and they just want to take your money.
Yeah, they want an extra person buying in.
Yeah, but they just want you to, they're being super nice to you because they want to take your money.
Yeah.
And that's definitely happened before. And my money definitely did not get taken. I won a lot that night, actually. But yeah, it's like, I think situations of that happen relatively often, I would say. Like they say something to try and either get you to play along. But that's either when you decide that you're either going to, say no, or you're better than them in whatever situation. You're either going to outshine them or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think one time I remember this was in, I think it was 8th grade. I don't know if this would be considered manipulation, probably, but there was, I was at 8th grade high jump.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the first meet of the year, and I've literally never done high jump before. At the time, I think it was like 5'4", maybe like 120. I don't even, whatever, doesn't matter. And these kids looked at me and they're like, "You're doing high jump? Like, why are you even doing high jump?" And all I practiced like the week before, I was able to get, I don't even remember what the heights were, but definitely at least 3 or 4 up.
Yeah.
At the first meet, after those kids said that to me, I didn't even get the first one.
That is still manipulation, because they cast a doubt in your mind and changed your confidence level in yourself. They manipulated your confidence level to say, "Hey, I'm not going to perform," and it worked.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was so funny though. I never did high jump after that again. I was like, "Are you serious? I didn't even get the first one."
So like I said, have you ever sensed in the moment? I think a better way for me to ask that was, do you think you can understand when it's happening to you? Like, more, instead of thinking of specifics, the more broad spectrum, like, do you can sense that you're being persuaded, or they're trying to persuade you into doing this or that?
I think that depends on the intelligence level of this person or who it is.
Yeah.
Because if it comes to a point where you don't know about a certain topic, that's when it's going to be like, okay, are they manipulating me or not? Because they know more than me about this specific topic.
Yeah.
Because they could be right. You just don't have the knowledge to be able to decipher whether or not it's real or not. Like, you don't have, obviously you could, after you finish talking to them or they tell you to do something, you could just go and Google it or whatever the situation is. But I think I'm so logical minded that I don't just take things at face value. I definitely have to look at it and do my own research.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if you don't do that, you're just going to lead yourself into like a pit of despair because you're just going to believe so many different things and you're not going to know what's true and you're going to follow a bunch of different
You're going to
values.
become a sheep.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be the... What the hell are the people that herd sheep called? The sheep... You got to be the sheep farmer, not the sheep. I can't think... There's a word for them, and it's blanking on my mind. But yeah, you can't fall into the pattern of one of the sheep. You have to think for yourself.
Yeah. That's when I obviously, like, when you know a lot about the topic or whatever you're speaking on, that's when you kind of can understand when somebody probably is trying to manipulate you.
Yeah.
But going back to what you said, like, earlier on in the show was it depends on what topic it is. Like, if you have knowledge within it, it's much easier to decipher that. But if you don't, that's when you kind of have to flip the switch and be like, okay, does what they're saying make sense?
Yeah.
And I'm going to do my own research on it, because if you don't do that, you're allowing yourself to get manipulated. You put yourself in those characteristics, or you have that characteristic of kind of being unintelligent to be manipulated, be those people that are easily manipulated.
Yeah.
And you get put in, like, let's say that person puts you in you're around a bunch of people that are being told the same thing and you all believe the same thing. You all are put in that kind of that realm of like easily manipulated. We're going to continue to try and do these to these people
sheep of the world.
until they build either trust in that person or respect to be able to make them realize that you know what you're talking about, or you know that they know what that they're manipulating you.
That's how uprisings happen in fucking all across time, all across the world. When the fucking like governments are overthrown, the people of that country realize that they're being fucking controlled and manipulated, and they slowly build the confidence within the people around them and say, hey, this is fucking wrong, we need to fix this, and that's when they overthrow the government.
It's just crazy too, because like thinking about government and stuff, how much that really goes into manipulation, like how much manipulation there's going throughout everything nowadays, especially with...
If you're good at manipulation and you're good at lying, the best job for you is to be a fucking politician, because that's all they do.
Yeah. Especially like, I mean, it doesn't even have to be like an American politician. There's so many countries around the world that are trying to fuck up the election. Like they send however many AI bot accounts sending certain comments to manipulate people's thoughts and making them think certain things. Like it's so much fake news.
Yeah.
And that's why you really have to come to a conclusion on if whatever they're saying makes sense, and you do need to do your own research.
Yeah.
Because especially when it comes to like the election and stuff, there's so much bullshit out there that you need to know what actually is going on. And it sucks that like all the candidates that we have are absolutely dog shit.
Yeah.
So that's when you really have to be true to your values. And like my opinion on politics is I don't know. I really feel like that you should be able to pick different pieces of the puzzle depending on who you shouldn't be supporting one side or the other. You should have supporting ideas from one side and supporting ideas of the other, and then you should try and find someone that try and follows those values. You shouldn't be like so one-sided.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm the exact same way, where like I don't claim Democrat, I don't claim Republican, I don't claim any fucking political party, because I'm smarter than that. And I know that 90% of the shit that's said on the left or the right is just manipulation tactics and them trying to almost like, it's more prominent now than ever. They're trying to almost like Civil War scenario where they're trying to place the left against the right.
Exactly.
And make them fight each other, because you grow farther and farther apart, and these people become more radical and radical for their side, and it's all it is the government entities manipulating them into their ideas and making their opinions on these things stronger, when in reality half the time they're fucking lying anyways.
It's just so fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like, how do you just have a whole government just trying to manipulate you the entire time?
And that's what all government is around the world. I mean, I still don't know how fucking true I believe it is, but I have read a decent amount into like how like BlackRock and like the Rothschilds fucking secretly run the world, and the richest families in the world secretly run the world, and everyone else and all these governments in the world are just fucking puppets in their game. And how there's like the Illuminati and shit. Like, as much as I don't know how much I believe it, it is very interesting to me to think about that, because I think that there is a very small group of elite people that could very well be manipulating the entire planet into whatever they need done. And
sure.
like, the reason I kept saying earlier manipulating people and things is because like you have politicians that do like insider trading and manipulate the market to make themselves money. Look at all these politicians that their salary is $112,000 a year as a senator, and they're multimillionaires. Where the fuck did that money come from? How are you making that much money as a senator or whatever position you have in the government?
Yeah.
When your salary is listed online at $112,000 a year? How do you have $40 million in the bank after 5 years? Like, I think AOC is one of them that was like that, where she was a bartender and then became a politician, and now she's worth like $40 million because she's manipulated the markets and done insider trading and made her way with it.
And you can look at like the median, like if you look up average checking account for by age, right, or medial checking account, the difference is ridiculous because of how much money the tippity top make.
Yeah.
So like the average could be, I don't even know, like I don't remember what exactly the numbers were, but they just don't make sense. But when you look at like, okay, if you take out all those super rich, the super mega rich, the number would actually make sense. So that even leads to like how much the rich manipulate everything in general. Like every type of data when it comes to finance or banking in general, they manipulate so much stuff because of how much money they actually have. And
they have the power to do it.
Yeah,
That's why they say the rich get richer and the poor get poorer.
Yeah, there was I don't remember what the news article was, but there was 2 news articles, and it said like 88% of Americans have had a lower wage, blah 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 blah, something like that. And then it was like it said 12% of the most rich people in the world just got richer.
Yeah,
and it's like that's just not a coincidence. You know, it's just because the richer you are, the more richer you're gonna get. They don't care about anyone that's middle class and below.
So now let's talk about why free will is not a real thing. You've talked about this with me before, and I want to hear your explanation on it again.
I would say that my opinion on free will is it's interesting because you make every decision based off of some other thought, and that kind of makes you realize that free will isn't a thing. We had a conversation at work about this, and it was, if you went to like, I shouldn't say that. I don't know. So let's just say you have some intrusive thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Another thought is telling you that you shouldn't do that, right? It may just be you, but there's something in there that's telling you that you shouldn't do that. So it could be your one and only thought that you have, but you realize that there's some other sort of entity that's telling you not to do that. So when it comes to free will, because everything is always dependent on something else, there has to be someone controlling something, you know?
The higher you go up the ladder, everything trickles down, and everyone is manipulated in one way or another. I mean, you may think you have free will to think freely, but there's still propaganda all over the world training your mind to think this or that, depending on where you live in the world. And it's not like in the physical sense of free will, you can't just fucking... You want to go live in fucking California, you need to have the money to do that. You need to find a job. You need to find a place to live. There's a lot of different factors that go into it, and you have no control over most of those factors.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, you don't have the free will to just get up and move to California because you need to find a way to do it. No, you can't just fucking go drive into Canada. You need a passport.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be checked at customs because you don't actually have the free will to do it. You may think you have the free will to do it because you can say, hey, I'm going to buy a plane ticket or I'm going to drive up into Canada. But there's so many outside factors that control that decision for you that it's not really of your free will. It's of the will of the people that let you do it, of the entities that let you allow you to do that.
I was reading this book called Outliers. It's actually on the shelf right there. And it's pretty much showing you the outliers in different situations. And this kind of allows me to have a perspective on free will because, okay, in that book, it kind of shows you the tippity top. Like if you're born in a certain period of time, you have a better chance of succeeding. Like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs were both born in the same year, I think. And they were both mega geniuses when it comes to programming and coding because how they grew up and what age they were when they grew up, the computer just started coming out and they were able to get into that before everybody else. But then relating it to free will, it's like you didn't have free will when you were born. You didn't know where you were going to be born. You could have got born into a family of poverty, or you were born into a family that was mega rich.
Yeah.
So knowing that every situation that you're in is dependent on something else. Yes, you can do certain things like you said, but it always trickles down to that one thing that led you to be where you are in that exact moment. And I think it's crazy to think about because I honestly never really thought about it the way that you were talking about, that you really need to have some sort of route to get to certain places, especially like going to a different country. You need to get a passport. You need to go through a system.
Yeah.
And
you're not allowed to do that unless the government says, yeah, you can go do that.
I think maybe at some point, it's not that free will isn't real. It's just there are minuscule amount of things that you're allowed to do freely.
Of free
so
will,
like,
yeah.
let's say in the freaking, I don't know, back when the dinosaurs were real and you were a caveman. Obviously, at the time, there's not a government or whatever, but what's holding you back from free will and going to get food or water are dinosaurs
The
or
other predators.
Yeah. So it's like now it's not as prominent because we don't have freaking mega monsters walking around trying to eat us, but you do have people that are
You
trying
have the
to kill
mega
you.
monsters of the government. The government is the mega monster.
Yes. So it may not be that something is like there's not like a matrix. I don't believe that we're in a simulation or whatever, but there's always been some sort of higher being that's keeping you from doing what you exactly want to do. And even back then, obviously you were born as a caveman, like you don't exactly have free will there. Now you can't just go out and drive on the wrong side of the road because you're going to get pulled over and ticketed or arrested. And I don't know if I'm trying to think of something that's actually free will. Because like everything costs something. There's never anything that's free. Like there's no such thing as a free lunch.
Yeah.
So I think that really relates to free will because it's the law of equivalent exchange. You have to give something
To get something. Like you may have the free will to get up and go to the bathroom and fucking piss, but that's going to cost you 30 seconds of your time. But I see like little things like that, I guess you could say are free will, but
because yeah, I mean realistically, some people don't have that
they don't have the ability to go piss in a toilet. They may have to go outside and piss. Mm-hmm. They don't have running water, but that is allowed by where you live and what job you work and how much money you make to be able to afford that house with a bathroom in it. So it's still not your free will because you were allowed to do that by something else.
Or you were born in a poor country that doesn't have enough money to provide running water or even fresh water to drink or a bathroom, you know?
Yeah, third world country or Flint, Michigan.
That's such an interesting topic because I don't know, like free will is crazy, and just to really understand that you have to have something to get something, you have to do something to do something else.
It all leads back into everything is manipulated by something else. Your sense of free will and what you think you have the free will to do is manipulated by your environment, what's around you, and the people and entities that control you.
Has there ever been anything that convinced you that we might be in a simulation? I don't think we are.
Plenty of times. I don't think we are either, but there has been situations where I'm like, maybe I am in a fucking simulation. Like, honestly, the big one for me is it happens to me probably at least once a month where I will have a vivid dream about something. I'll wake up, go on with my day, go on with the next 2 weeks, and then that something will happen. Word for word, identical to the dream. I will remember. It's only like, and it'll be something so fucking stupid and useless, and it'll be like 20 seconds of a dream, and that's it. But when it happens, I'm like, holy fuck, I had a dream about this, and it's been happening to me my entire life.
That's crazy.
Like, I dream about little things like that happening, like being at an exact point on 90 with an exact song playing and me having a conversation with, like, Maddie, for example. I'll have dreams about a little moment like that, and it'll never be anything significant, but I have the dream about it, and it happens word for word exactly how it happened in my dream.
My opinion on that is I feel like dreams are another version of yourself in a different universe, and you're just seeing into it. Like, or for example, I had a thought once. I was driving down the road, and I was like, what if I just, like,
Drove off?
smashed into this tree right now? Like, would me in this universe be gone? And then, like, some other... Okay, so, like, let's think about it like this. There's multiple decisions, right? Let's just say the two decisions are I either just keep going straight, whatever I'm doing, or I smash into that tree. One of my versions of me smashed into that tree. Like, for sure. Like, if I have a thought about something, my other version of myself has done that.
In a different universe.
And I think, I don't know. I don't know if that's a simulation or it's just, like, multiverse Marvel shit. But there's also another situation that happened to me. Like, this was like when I was maining Rust, when I would play Rust all the time.
Yeah.
And there'd be, like, airdrops in Rust, right? So I was sitting at Kuma's corner eating a burger, and I look up and I see a fucking plane. And I'm like, oh, an airdrop's coming down. And I'm like, what the fuck? I was like, I'm not in Rust right now. I literally thought I was in Rust. And I felt, like, so manipulated that I was actually in that game. And I don't know, that doesn't really put me in a simulation, but it does make me think that
maybe there's outside factors.
Yes, and exactly. And then there was another time when I was picking up Nilo from the airport where I swear this plane, it was moving at like 1 frame per second. Like, it was just moving across. It wasn't moving at all. And it was just, or it was moving, but it was just moving like this. It doesn't seem like there was rotors moving or there was clouds moving or anything. It just was like one singular frame was moving across the sky.
That's happened to me before too.
And I'm like, what the fuck just happened? And now I'm thinking about it, I feel like I retract my statement that I don't believe that we could possibly be in a simulation.
That's a very I feel like we could make an entire podcast about that, but that's a very slippery slope because while it's hard for me to say yes, I think we're living in a simulation, because if you go in public and say that out loud, most people are going to think you're fucking crazy. Other people are going to pat you on the back and be like, you're there with me. We're in a fucking simulation. But most people are going to be like, well, the media tells me that you're crazy because you said that, so you're a fucking psychopath. Get away from me. So it's hard to believe things like that because they're conspiracy theories, and they're called conspiracy theories for a reason, because a lot of conspiracy theories in the past were real things that were happening, but it was like the government doing things, like the fucking MK Ultra back in the 60s and 70s. That was a conspiracy theory back then when it was actually happening. And anyone that brought attention to it was labeled as crazy by the CIA and the FBI and all these government agencies because they didn't want the word to get out that that was actually happening. And that's why, I don't know, I read a lot of conspiracy theories and I pick and choose which ones I want to at least put some belief in and which ones are just out of this world fucking crazy. Like, I've ended up on fucking Flat Earth Twitter at like 3 a.m. a few times. That is fucking crazy. There's no fucking chance this world is flat.
Have you seen the video where it was these guys trying to prove that the world was flat?
With the 2 planks of wood?
Yeah. And then they proved it that it was round.
Or like they have a map that says that Antarctica is an ice wall, and then outside the ice wall you have fucking like other countries and fucking like Asgard and like the land of the gods. And I'm like, no, this is fucking fairy tale. But there's other conspiracy theories that you read them and you're like, you know what? Like, that has some swing. That might be right. Like, I don't know. I'm on the edge about whether or not Bush did 9/11. Because jet fuel can't melt steel beams. And why did that fucking Tower 13 or whichever one was just explode in free fall when nothing had hit it?
Mm-hmm.
And fucking a month before the planes hit the tower, the owner of the Twin Towers fucking took out $1 billion insurance policy on him for terrorist attacks.
Really?
Yes. And he just happened to not be in the building that day.
Huh. Maybe I should look into conspiracy theories.
It's some of them are bullshit and you can see that they're bullshit, but other ones really make you think and you're like, holy fuck, like they may be onto something here.
So what has been one of your favorite conspiracy theories that you actually believe was true? Like other than maybe that one, but like what would be one?
There's a few. Like I don't think Lee Harvey Oswald killed JFK because like JFK and Abraham Lincoln were both two very progressive presidents trying to push us forward in the world. And they were both assassinated. And I think they were both assassinated by government entities. And the people that assassinated them were just used as cover-ups or like sleeper cells or fucking controlled by the government to do that thing, to be a martyr for their cause. Like JFK especially, because they say that this man shot him from the library in a moving vehicle and hit him fucking 3 times from 1,000 yards out. And that was something that like a military grade fucking like a Chris Kyle sniper would struggle to do. And he did it perfectly. So there's a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding the government that I look at and I'm like, you know what? This might be right. Like the government may have done fucking 9/11. The government may have assassinated fucking JFK and Abraham Lincoln. The government fucking files were declassified and Martin Luther King's family won a civil suit, because it was proven that the fucking government killed Martin Luther King. He wasn't assassinated by some fucking radicalist white racist person. He was killed by the government. And his family settled out of court or they won a civil suit for millions of dollars saying, yeah, the fucking CIA killed Martin Luther King. It might not have been the CIA, but it was a government entity. Did
you hear about that one where there was a guy that he was a security guard at a grocery store, and he just either patented or found a way to run a car on water.
Yeah, hydrogen water.
And then some guy drove like 100 miles.
Said it's time. That was like a month ago in Chicago.
I think it wasn't. It was sometime last year.
Oh,
I think. But yeah, like he drove 100 miles. It said it's time to do this. I'm gonna drive 100 miles to this exact grocery store and kill this exact guy.
Yeah.
And I think that's fucking crazy, because you hear anything about someone coming up with a more efficient way of producing energy or fuel or whatever, and they just always somehow pass away or something happens to them.
Have you ever heard about the last time that happened when they say I think GE, General Electric, owns General Motors.
Mm-hmm.
And because General Electric is one of those huge fucking companies that you don't realize is an umbrella company like fucking ABC with Google.
Mm-hmm.
There was a man back in like the 50s or 60s that patented a hydrogen fueled car, and he mysteriously died, and fucking the patent disappeared and was never seen again. But it was like starting to gain traction, and all of a sudden he was dead and the patent disappeared and it was swept under the rug. Or there's all these fucking people that have been like, hey, I think I figured out how to cure cancer, and they die by suicide, in quotes. They killed themselves. They jumped out of a fucking 13-story building because they don't know why. But yeah, they had the cure for cancer, but that great mind is gone, so let's brush it under the table.
That's insane.
Or another one is like Hillary Clinton has had like fucking 50 or 60 friends, maybe even more than that have killed themselves in various ways, because the Clintons are supposedly a very evil family and have a lot of power, and to protect themselves, they kill the people that know things that they shouldn't.
This show has really opened my eyes to how much manipulation really affects everything.
I was really excited for this one because I understand this probably more than anything else. I don't know why, but I really just understand the concepts of manipulation well. Because it's everywhere. And most people don't realize it. Like, you didn't realize it until we were fucking talking today, how much manipulation plays into everything and everyone and everything you know and do. Like, do you know how to manipulate your own mind?
I would say so. I would say it's giving myself like positive reinforcement or telling, negative and positively,
Not
I
in
would
that
say.
way. Do you know how to physically, like, say I'm on a road trip and I have to pee really bad? I can turn that off in my brain. I know how to tell myself, I don't have to pee right now, or I'm not hungry right now. I'm not thirsty right now. I can turn off like bodily functions, not forever, but for an amount of time because I know how to manipulate my mind into thinking I don't need that right now.
Definitely I couldn't do it on the spot. I think in a way it's more of just like if I have to go to the bathroom, I just try and last long enough until it just goes away, because I do think that definitely has happened sometimes. I'm on the way home and I'm like, gotta get home, gotta get home, gotta get home, gotta go to the bathroom, and then it just like goes away. And then sometimes I'll get home and I just forget about it, and then I don't have to go for like a few hours.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe unintentionally I can do that, but
I used to tell people all the time, like, if someone would complain and be like, hey, I have to pee, or I'm hungry, or I'm thirsty, and I'd be like, tell yourself you don't have to pee. Really tell yourself, convince yourself you don't have to pee and you won't have to pee anymore. And everyone was always like they would never try it. They'd be like, you're fucking crazy, shut the fuck up, thinking I was kidding. But I'd be like, no, I do it myself. I promise you, if you can really, truly, you can't just say it in your mind. You have to be able to convince yourself and manipulate your mind into thinking you don't have to do that thing. But once you can harness that and control it, you can do it. You can shut off those fucking bodily functions. You can say, I don't have to pee. I'm not hungry. I'm not thirsty. This doesn't hurt. Like, you know how you'd get hurt when you're younger? Like, you'd fucking stub your toe and your dad would be like, I'm going to punch you in the arm. You won't be thinking about your toe anymore. And it's almost the same concept. Like, if you fucking stub your toe and you're just like, that doesn't hurt anymore, you can turn it off to a degree. Obviously, not in every situation, but you can manipulate your mind in those ways.
yeah, I think that actually reminds me of this one thing I heard, and it was there was two guys, and this one guy, he took out a lighter and turned it on, like licked his fingers and pinched it, and didn't moan, didn't grimace at all. And this other guy's like, whoa, dude, how did you do that? Let me try it. And did the same thing. Psh, ow. He's like, how did you not feel the pain? And it was like, you don't feel it by like not showing emotion or something. Like it was like you just, if you don't
let it hurt, it's not going to hurt.
Exactly. And well, how do you think that like, for example, okay, that's the same thing. Like, okay, you're not trying to, you have to go to the bathroom. You don't want to go to the bathroom. So you tell yourself that. You think that leads into, okay, I don't want to jump into this ice bath right now, but I'm going to do that.
It's not going to be as bad as I think it is. So I'm going to get into it and I'm not going to let it deter me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it can be used in the physical sense. It can be used in the mental sense. You just have to know how to harness it and control it.
So what was like out of that specific situation in general? What do you think is something that you've told yourself that you're like, what the fuck? I can't believe I just told myself I did that, and it actually worked.
I do it a lot in situations where like I'm like anxious to talk to people, where I'm like, or I'm freaking out about, like at work, if I'm going into work knowing I'm gonna get in trouble for something, I'll be like, you know what? I really don't care if I get in trouble. It's not gonna be that bad, and I let it kind of wash away, and I can kind of harness the mental power to say this isn't gonna affect me. I don't care if I get in trouble, and it usually turns into either me not caring or me defending myself over just taking the punishment and being mad about it. In the physical sense, I started taking like the last 30 seconds to a minute of my shower have been, I've hit the point where like I turn the shower to the coldest setting and I stand in it for a minute and I'm like, this isn't that fucking cold. I don't know why I hate cold water. Or even like this winter was big for me because every winter I get so fucking depressed in the winter because I hate the cold and I hate being cold. But this winter I turned it into the cold isn't that bad and I'm okay. I think part of that is being 20 pounds heavier, but whereas last year I'd have to fucking put a jacket on in 35-degree weather. Now I can fucking take Chad outside when it's -9 in pants and no t-shirt. Just bare chest, -10 degrees. And I'll stand out there for 30 seconds to a minute and just deal with it because I have to embrace the cold instead of being scared of it.
So do you think that's because of manipulation?
I think I've manipulated my mind to think the cold isn't as bad. With shit like that, it's stepping stones. It's not something that you can just say the cold doesn't affect me anymore unless you have a lot of fucking willpower, because it does take willpower and mental strength to do that. But you can build that mental strength by slowly easing yourself into it. Like, you tell yourself over and over that the cold doesn't bother you, and you start going out in a t-shirt in 30-degree weather for 5 minutes, and you start going out in a t-shirt in 20-degree weather, and then you don't want to put a t-shirt on, so you're like, fuck it, I'm just going to walk outside in the cold, I don't care. It's not going to be that cold, and it's fucking -4 degrees, and you're out there for 30 seconds, and you're like, wow, this doesn't hurt as bad as it would have if I would have been telling myself, fuck, I hate this. This is going to be cold. If you tell yourself it's not going to be as cold, you'll trick your mind into thinking that it's not going to be as cold as you thought it was going to be.
So I guess that's actually a positive way of manipulation as well. I was more thinking of obviously manipulating the people around you, but you can also manipulate yourself to benefit yourself. Like, it's not just, I guess the title would be manipulating others to benefit yourself.
As crazy as it sounds, you can convince yourself to do things.
And I think that actually would help a lot of people, because convincing yourself that you're going to get through whatever situation you're in, or you can do more than you think you're capable of doing. Once you're able to realize that, I think that will give a lot of people a better mindset on a lot of different things, especially people who are not doing well mentally.
Yeah.
And I think trying to manipulate yourself in positive ways is actually really good.
Yeah.
Because as long as you're not providing harm to yourself, I wouldn't say that it's positive to walk outside at -5 for a certain period of time.
That's just an example, because I hate the cold and I'm trying to build the endurance against it.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Realistically, if you think about it that way too, one of the reasons why I did cold plunges, which it kind of sucks because I stopped doing them, because I wanted to see how my body has acclimated to cold weather.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to see what the difference was. I didn't feel that cold this winter. I don't remember exactly what it got down to, but I do think I was able to withstand a little bit more cold, simply because I was more comfortable in sitting in cold water.
Yeah.
And
cold water is always going to be fucking colder than cold air.
Mm-hmm. And I just think that's such a great insight to take about this, is because just try and build your mindset and manipulate yourself to become that person who you want to be.
Yeah.
And
only you can change you.
Mm-hmm.
You have to manipulate you. If you don't believe something, you have to manipulate your mind into believing it.
And I think even like with all these the tactics that I said earlier, like smiling, being genuinely interested, knowing everybody's name, like talking in terms of other people's interests, I think that you can use all of those to improve yourself. Because if you're interested in yourself and you try and convince yourself that you should always smile, I think if you're thinking more positive all the time, you're going to put yourself in that better mindset that will allow you to have a better outlook on whatever's going on, throughout the day. Like you said, you manipulated your sense of anxiety when you're going to have a tough talk at work.
Yeah.
And I think trying to do that as much as possible is going to, one, alleviate some sort of stress that you have in your mind, and it's going to make you happier in the long run, connecting to like back to our last episode. There was a quote that I heard that actually related to success that I wish I would have heard before that last episode. And what is the freaking quote? I just had it, but I forgot it now. It was like, hold on, let me ponder. I have it in my phone. My phone's charging. Or my phone's
your phone's recording.
Oh God. It was like, success is the progressive fuck, I don't remember.
I almost pulled out my phone to try and look it up too, and my phone's recording.
Yeah, but it was just like, it's just trying to, don't just try to manipulate others. Like if you try to manipulate others to this is unrelated, like to what I was trying to find. But trying to manipulate others is obviously, couldn't be a good or bad thing. Obviously, you have your interests. But I think bringing it all together by realizing you can manipulate your own self and your mind is probably more important than trying to manipulate others.
Yeah, I feel like most people don't realize they can do that either. Like, it is, because it's hard to do. It is hard to manipulate your mind and change the way you think by yourself with no outside forces.
That also relates to trying to bring more respect and love to yourself as well, and building trust in yourself.
Yeah.
Because I feel like once you do one thing once. Like, for example, you just bring like a cold shower. Once you do it once, you realize that
It's
it wasn't
not as
that bad.
bad.
And you do it over and over and over again. You build trust. You build respect in yourself, discipline, that it allows you to realize that you can do that. You can manipulate yourself into doing anything.
Exactly. I feel like David Goggins has probably fucking manipulated himself into doing a lot of things, because there's no way in hell he said, yeah, I want to do this right now.
Mm-hmm.
But he convinced himself that it was worth it to do it, and that's still manipulation. Convincing yourself to do something is manipulating your mind into thinking it's okay to do it. Because manipulation is everywhere.
Everywhere and everything is manipulation.
Yeah.
This is kind of, I mean, it's related to manipulation, but it was going back to like those few values of like positive manipulating others. I thought it was an interesting fact. So it was the one about knowing everybody's name and calling them by it.
Yeah.
The quote is, remember that a person's name to that person is the sweetest and most important sound in any language. And there was this fact that I heard, and it was P.T. Barnum. Do you know who that is by chance? Like the greatest
Barnum
showman?
and Bailey? Yeah.
Yeah, he was like the greatest showman. He didn't have any kids, but he cared about carrying on his name so bad that he offered his grandson $25,000 to carry on the name Barnum.
I mean, your name is... That's everything to a lot of people. Like, your name is your keepsake and your legacy. And if you put a bad rep to your name, you're going to be remembered throughout history. You're either not going to be remembered at all, or you're going to be remembered as a terrible person. Like, you look at fucking Adolf Hitler. You hear the name Hitler and people cringe because he created such a bad name for himself that he will be remembered as one of the worst people of all time for the rest of history.
You know what's crazy about that is I heard a story that I think it was an interview with someone that was in Germany at the time when Hitler was
Rising to power.
Yeah. And they were like, why didn't you revolt against this guy? Like, because the reason was because he was giving them what they needed. They needed someone to come in and give them the stuff that they needed. So they were being manipulated to think he was a better guy because they were getting what they needed. But on the other hand, they didn't care about all the stuff that he was doing because that wasn't affecting them.
Yeah, like he came into power in the like early 1930s. I want to say like 1933, 1934. He started coming into power, and he manipulated the masses into thinking Jewish people were taking all of their money and the economy was terrible because of Jewish people, because after World War I, in modern day money, it was trillions of dollars in reparations that they owed for the war. So the economy of Germany was just fucking destroyed. Mm-hmm. And they had this man start rising to power that was like, hey, I'm going to fix all your problems for you. We're going to get rid of all of the people that cause problems, all the people that need welfare, this and that. And he manipulated the German people that followed the Nazi party into thinking that like Jewish people were evil and the root of all their problems. And he told all those people that he was going to fix the problems and he was going to make Germany great again. And he was going to bring them to the top when they were so low from the reparations and the destruction of World War I. And he manipulated the masses into being by his side. And that's the reason he was able to do these things, because he told his followers that he was doing the right thing, and they saw no wrong in what he was doing because he manipulated them.
Did they know he was doing what he was doing?
I don't think they understood the extent of it. Like, the average German citizen wouldn't know that these people are going into fucking concentration camps and being burned to death and gassed to death in the masses. He thought he was just getting the varmint in his eyes out of their country and making the perfect race and bringing prosperity to the German people and what should be the ideal German person. And that's how the people of Germany saw it back then. They were like, he's moving them somewhere else. We don't care where he's moving them because he's going to make our lives better again after this 20-year depression we've been in since 1918.
Makes it seem that it's very easy to manipulate people when they're at their lowest.
When they're at their lowest, and when you have symbols of power like being in the government, it is very easy to manipulate the masses. Because 90% of the people in this world, between 90 and 95% of the people in this world, I feel, are sheep to the cause, and they don't think with free will. They let other people, obviously free will is not real, but they don't come to their own conclusions. They let other people do their thinking for them, and they follow that as their baseline their whole lives. They never try to figure out problems on their own. They never form new opinions or contest their own opinions. They follow what the people tell them to think, and that's it. And that's why there's such a huge divide in the country right now, because Democrats versus Republicans are so far right and so far left now that it's causing turmoil because their views are so different, and they don't want to say, hey, maybe they could be right on this issue. They say, you're on that side, fuck you, I will not respect your opinion. Because they've been manipulated to do that.
Do you think you have an idea of what we could do to try and solve that issue of being so far right and being so far left and trying to become kind of like a union once again?
You want me to be completely honest with you? I don't think that happens until there's another fucking civil war in this country. We are almost too far gone to fix the problems now.
So do you think it's... So, okay, when we say civil war, it's the people against the government? Or is it...
I think it's the people against the people, and the government created that issue. It would be another situation where the far right states secede, or the far left states secede and try to form their own government and overthrow the other side. But I don't understand, or I have no concept of how that could happen in today's day and age. But if that happened, I don't think it would go well, because there's I don't remember the number. It was either 1.9 or it was 1.9 or 9 guns per person in this country of America. Mm-hmm. So there is more than one gun.
More guns
for every person in the country. Yeah. So, and most of those guns are owned by the Republicans, the far right people, the country boys, them good old boys down south.
So what would happen if, let's say that happened? What would the government do? How are we gonna? Why would it be people versus people then? If we're gonna try and overthrow the government, that, I'm trying to how would that work?
Because it would split into two governments, and you'd have the secession, whichever, if it was far right or far left, the secession would have a leader that follows their views and practices and morals and what they believe is right, and the other side would have their leader that would be... The one that didn't secede would be the United States president, and the one that did secede would be, say the fucking far right seceded from the United States of America, and they said, hey, Donald Trump, you're our leader. Donald Trump would be the president of the secession, how fucking... Who the fuck was it? I want to say Robert E. Lee, but I don't think it was Robert E. Lee, but it might have been in World War, or in the Civil War. You had your United States president, and you had your president of the southern states, the fucking secession.
So would there be some sort of... I mean, if you just think about the technology that the government has now, though, wouldn't that be on one side of the fight, or would there just... You know what I'm saying? I feel like if the whatever side the actual government was on, and you have the government side of all the technology and all the missiles and all the tanks and
that's
stuff.
why I say I don't know how it would work today.
Because it just seems stupid. Obviously there's a lot of guns in the country, and they would probably be able to put up a good fight. But we don't know what the government has.
Yeah.
They probably have... I mean, people probably have some mega drones too, but the government has more mega drones, more super tanks, more fucking stealth bombers and AC-130s and stuff. You don't... I just feel like it's impossible for that to happen, and trying to overthrow the government with the amount of technology that we have.
See, America's an outlier in that situation, though, because America has the strongest military in the world, whereas this shit actually happens in third world countries, in fucking places like Venezuela or...
Because they smuggle
Colombia.
Maybe American guns or American technology, and then they use it against people.
You have your fucking guerrilla fighters that are look at the Taliban in Afghanistan. The Taliban just finally took over the country after Joe Biden pulled the rest of the troops out. The Taliban controls the country now, and they were fighting for the country for fucking 20 years, 25 years. And it was the guerrilla fighters, the Taliban, versus the actual Afghan army and fucking American army. Mm-hmm. But it would have been say America didn't step in and fight in the Middle East, I feel like that would have happened a lot sooner because the guerrillas had more willpower. They were like, if we don't win this, we're done. So they had to fight and claw and just, they had no other option. And so this shit, it really does happen in other countries. It's just America is kind of an outlier in that situation because I also don't think a civil war could happen again because there's too many. It's just, I don't think it's possible.
It wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
Definitely wouldn't make sense for whoever it would be to try and take over the government because, like I said, you don't know what they have. And it's actually interesting to look at because you were talking about like the Taliban and stuff and looking at the difference between like the American army and like what they have. Are you familiar with Shane Gillis? He's a comedian.
Yeah.
Have you heard of his skit about what it's like to be, I think it was like an Irani soldier compared to like a so
I've only heard a couple of his.
Yeah, so he was talking about how he was watching like war videos, and he was watching this one with his friend, and there's such a difference between what it is to be like American like trained soldier and like I think Iraqi soldier.
Yeah.
So like they blow up like a truck or something, and they're like, yes, like they start screaming, they like jumping all around, and this is his skit, and you watch like an American helicopter guy pull in, and he just clears out a whole bunch of people, whole bunch of houses, whatever, and he just goes in the headset, clear, and drives away and flies away. No reaction at all.
Yeah.
So like,
because that's what they're trained to do.
yeah, and it's just like, just even looking at that, the difference between our soldiers and like third world country soldiers, it makes more sense why we wouldn't be able to try and take over the government.
Yeah.
Because however many trained soldiers they have in the U.S., I mean, they definitely would be able to take over the amount of.
I think we're sitting at like 1.7 million active duty right now.
Mm-hmm. Because then,
but still, like, you think about that, but at the same time, there's 330 million people in this country. Our military active members is 0.3% of that.
Yeah.
So when you think about that,
I think, I mean, yeah, if you take the entire population of the U.S. and subtract all the military personnel from that number, and you send 300 million people at the government, well, you would probably overthrow the government. But then you still have there's still that split of the 300,000 people or 300 million people that don't know what they both have differing opinions.
Yeah, but say it's split right down the middle. You have 165 million far left, 165 million far right. Whoever the side of the government it is at that time, they only have an extra 1.7 million people over the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's very, very, very improbable, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's 100% impossible for it to happen.
I really wonder what the country would turn into. Like, what do you think normal life would be if there just happened to be a civil war? Like, do you think work would continue, or do you think there'd just be a bunch of people running around, like, shooting people?
I think anarchy would break out because there would not be control from the government anymore. It would be a bad time for this country. Like, cities leveled, fucking murder, arson wherever you go, looting wherever you go, people fucking fighting and killing over basic supplies because they've put fucking lockdowns on fucking getting people supplies.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't think that would go well.
This is off topic, but not really. If this situation was to happen, what would be the first place you go to try and prepare for
Canada?
You just go to Canada.
I would just go to Canada. I don't think Canada would get involved in an American Civil War. And
do you think they would let you in? Do you think they would provide refuge?
I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know if Canada would pick and choose who they'd let in from America, or if they'd let anyone in at all.
Yeah. Do you think other countries would
let in refugees like we've let in?
Not even not let in refugees, but do you think they would try and take over certain areas? Like they say, okay, the Civil War is going on, we're gonna try and take over a state.
I think like China, for example, would probably try to come in and enforce some things. I think if a civil war happened, it would show breaks in the strength of America, and other countries would try to act on that. because we're fighting each other. We don't have the power to fight someone else too.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen the movie Red Dawn?
About Russia?
No, it's
about the Soviet Union and
no, it's like I think it's like Korea or the Chinese. They like it's basically about them taking over the U.S. And it's with
it's been a long time.
Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah, I have seen that.
And PETA from Hunger Games.
Yeah,
I feel like whenever
I think that was like a remake in the movie. I've seen the original.
Yeah, I think it is a remake. And I do think like talking about this situation, I think about what would happen if something like that would happen. Obviously, it's not a civil war, but it's just like a war on the country in general.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I would. I don't know if that's possible. Like, it's definitely not possible for some.
America is 100% the hardest country in the world to invade.
Mm-hmm.
Like, having a land invasion from any other force. I was reading about this like a month and a half or 2 months ago. How much fucking protection we have. Because first you'd have to go through the Navy on either side. And then we have such an extensive Air Force for any fucking planes flying in that they'd get shot down. We have anti-aircraft vehicles all across the coastlines everywhere you go.
Yeah, but what about that one blimp the China blimp that just like randomly showed up in the middle and like
it randomly showed up, but then it got shot down.
Yeah, but like, what if they didn't just send one? What if they sent 100 or 1,000 of those things? Just like because it somehow got into our airspace without us knowing. So do you think it's possible for them to send a whole bunch more?
I think it's possible, but at the same time, I still think that's just a fucking. I think those were probably used for monitoring something with like cameras and shit, but that's just a balloon. You send a fucking fleet of 50 fighter jets in. That's a lot more high priority. They're going to scramble as many jets as possible to that location and either tell them to fucking turn around because they're in restricted airspace or they're going to get shot down.
Do you think that would just end up in nuclear war?
It could.
Or do you think... My opinion on nuclear war is like, I think once somebody sends one, everyone
sends them everywhere. That's the problem. If one person... Nowadays, if someone sends a fucking nuke to another country... The world is over as we know it because it's going to start a nuclear war. If someone tried to nuke America, America has a fucking nuclear arsenal. They would just start fucking shooting them off at whoever. Clear every fucking major city in that fucking country that sent them at us. Because at that point, if they're attacking American citizens like that, I feel like America loses all fucking sense of we're going to protect the civilians and they... Like, if they're going to bomb Chicago, say it's Russia, if they hit Chicago with a nuke, they're going to go hit fucking Moscow and all the other big Russian cities.
Is it possible, though, to even land one? Like, I mean, we have so many...
I don't know if we have the capabilities to completely stop a nuke. Because that's... Yes, it shoots up into fucking space, but it comes so fast that... Like, say a nuke gets sent from fucking, like, North Korea. I'm pretty sure it would be in America in, like, fucking 3 or 4 hours. And if you shoot that down over anything in this country, it's going to create a huge electromagnetic pulse. It'll shut down communications for that entire area. It could fuck up a lot still. And I don't know if we have the anti-air defense systems to actually stop a nuke.
Mm-hmm. I would assume they probably have some sort of... preparation for one.
Yeah.
But I just don't know how that stuff works, to be honest.
Yeah. That I've never really looked into.
That's just...
See, now I'm manipulating your mind into wondering if we could ever go into civil war, actually.
Yeah, I think we're going to go into one now. You convinced me.
Yeah. But, I mean, it goes to show, like... how much we are really manipulated every day, even if we don't realize it, because everything that the government does, everything that your leaders do above you, everything that you convince yourself to do is all manipulation, no matter what way you think about it, no matter how you look at it. Mm-hmm. Something is always manipulating your decisions every single day.
Yeah, I just think you just have to look at it as trying to do what's right most of the time. You should use it to your advantage. I mean, I would assume. Yeah. I mean, I do it as well.
Don't use it. with ill will for others, but definitely use it for personal gain if you can, as long as it's not gonna like fucking kill someone else. Or don't be scared to use that and push yourself forward, because everyone is going to do it, and you have to know how to harness that.
Yeah, it's just like knowing a meta to a game and just like purposely not using it because you want to be a good person. When it's like you're gonna put yourself in a bigger hole if you do that. So it's like utilize it in a way that helps you but also brings up others at the same time if you can. But no, you shouldn't worry about it too much, because it's going to happen no matter what.
Yeah. If you're not going to manipulate that person, the next person is. Master manipulators know.
Yep. We'll use these tactics
For good and only good.
and take over the world.
I promise.
Appreciate your time today.
Appreciate
Thank you.
your time. Thank you.
Hope you guys have a wonderful night. See ya.